Hey everybody, Dr. Phil here. This is going to be a video discussing market research essentials in the broader scope of marketing management. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So, making good marketing decisions, the need to know. Well, firstly, information is power. I think everybody's aware of that. Need to know the right information at the right time and in the right format, which of course is essential for decision makers. Market research is methodology identification, collection, analysis, and distribution of data related to discovering and solving problems or opportunities. It enhances good decision making. Now, a significant problem for most managers today is not having too little information. I think you know what's coming. It's having too much, right? Hence, we have the old saying TMI, too much information. Now, marketing managers need a system to design and execute research that generates precise information. Now, there are two fundamental types of market information needed today, and that is one, data related to broad areas of interest, and then two, data that addresses a specific research question. Now, an MIS, a market information system, is not a software package, but a continuing process of identifying, collecting, analyzing, accumulating, and dispensing critical information to marketing decision makers. Now, with respect to the MIS, the Marketing Information System, what information should the system collect? Well, we've got to consider what information is important and the source of the data. And of course, what information is important is going to be really determined by the company. Now, what are the information needs of each decision maker? Because obviously, not everybody needs the same information. And how does the system maintain the privacy and confidentiality of sensitive information? So how do we basically limit access to those who need to know? So we really could say like a need to know basis. Now, at the heart of marketing is the relationship amongst the company, its products, and its customers. Companies need to understand what is and is not working in the customer interface. And of course, they need to know that as quickly as possible. Market information systems help identify problems and proactively address issues. Companies should not overlook the information available in their own company, and sometimes they will do that. Business success is based in part on both the quality and quantity of information available to management. Now, most companies engage in collecting, analyzing, and storing data from the macro environment on a continuous basis, and this is known as marketing intelligence. Excelling in marketing intelligence could be thought of in and of itself as a competitive advantage. Now, what about collecting information outside the company? Well, demographics help to one, define a market, and two, identify new opportunities. Now, as marketers, we're interested in populations of interest, ethnic groups, and certainly geographic changes. And we have two types of economic knowledge, these macro and microeconomics. So think about micro, very small. This is defined as the study of individual economic activity. So here we're thinking about the firm, the household, and prices. Macroeconomics is the study of economic activity in terms of broad measures of output. So we're thinking of the interaction of various sectors of an entire economy. So here we see sort of at the grand, topological level, the sort of 10,000 foot view, we see the market research process. And we'll spend a little time now talking about that. So firstly, we define the research problem. We establish the research design. Then we search our secondary sources. We collect our data. Of course, we analyze the data, and then we report the findings. Now, one of the biggest challenges facing a market researcher is accurately defining the problem. The management research deliverable defines what managers want to do with the research. Now, the key is to have information to make better, more informed decisions. Now, to define the research problem, exactly what information is needed, and obviously that's going to depend on the research problem itself, and where can we get how easily can we get the data that we need to turn that into useful information. There are three basic types of research. We have what we call exploratory research, which is about discovery. Descriptive research seeks to describe or explain some phenomenon. And then causal research tries to discover the cause and effect between variables, which I will say, as a researcher myself, That's very difficult to do. So exploratory research. Here we would clarify the research problem. We would develop hypotheses for testing in descriptive or causal research. And we would try to gain additional insight to help in survey developments or to identify other research variables for study. And then hopefully be able to answer the research question or questions. Descriptive research identifies associations between variables. So here we identify the characteristics of our target market. We assess competitor actions in the marketplace. We determine how customers use our products. And we discover differences across demographic characteristics, for example, age, education, and income, with respect to the use of our products or our competitors. Now, causal research looks to discover the cause and effect between variables. And again, like I said, that can be very hard to do. There's some factors to consider with this type of research, and really all types of research, is benefit versus cost. How long is it going to be until you can make a decision? The nature of the decision, and one of the biggest ones is the availability of data. Sometimes you have to pay for data, for example. Now, let's talk briefly about primary versus secondary data. So primary data, think about primary, that's a sort of a synonym for first. Primary data is data collected specifically for the research question at hand. And this could be either qualitative or quantitative research. Secondary data, on the other hand, is data collected for some other purpose than the problem currently being considered. So secondary data is obviously easier to get. You can do things more quickly with secondary data, but it doesn't mean necessarily that the data you're using, because it wasn't collected with you in mind or with your research in mind, it may not be the best data for your purposes. Now, with regard to exploratory research techniques, the focus group is typically moderated by a professional. There's usually sort of a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 10 people. It's more of an unstructured kind of open format, and it's not a representative sample, but it leads to the development of surveys. Now, another type is an in-depth interview. This is also unstructured, or maybe loosely structured, with an individual based on some characteristic of interest, typically or often demographic. Now, here we see some descriptive research techniques. Surveys are structured questionnaires via mail, telephone, or internet. Behavioral data is based on what consumers do, not what they say. Observational data is collected by watching what people do in various situations. And then as a subset of that, mechanical observation uses machines like turnstiles, traffic counters, eye cameras, galvanometers, which are attached to the skin, and things like Amazon Alexa. Now, a critical part of research design involves determining exactly what information is needed and how to frame the questions to get that information. So consider question formats and responses. We have open-ended questions, and then we have closed-ended questions, right? We can also consider the method of survey delivery. You're going to do it by mail, which in this day and age would be probably inefficient. Email would probably be more efficient, or even like a SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics. Possibly use a telephone. And again, electronic would fall into sort of the realm of like Qualtrics and those types of programs. All right, thanks for watching this brief video, and I will see you all in a future video.